Hey again, and welcome back to my craft room. This is card number 2 in my New Horizons product class for April 2022. Actually recording this about the 5th of May, but we had some delays getting the designer series paper for this class. So yeah, it got pushed back a wee bit as far as getting all the kits out and getting everything completed. This is our second card, or what I'm going to call the second card. I've cut it as a portrait card rather than a landscape card, and it's got the main colours are Night of Navy and Blackberry Bliss, two of my favourites. Best thing or nice thing about this card is there's a layer of vellum behind the front panel, so that sort of really makes that sort of jump out a wee bit more. And I've used the very handy oval punch here, this one, which I'm using a lot at the moment to cut our little oval sentiment and backing there. So if you haven't got this one, I do suggest you grab it. And we've got 3 little rhinestones down the bottom there, just to add a little bit of accent there. You could pop them anywhere over the card you wanted to, but I quite like them down the bottom there in a row. Okay, so let's get started with this one. As with the first video, I'll show you first of all how to cut the 6x6 designer series paper to fit the card. This one's a wee bit, well, a fair bit more straightforward than the cutting the first one. But again, I will put a picture of the finished cut on my website for you to see, just in case these instructions don't make much sense. Okay, so we've got this, the piece of paper we're using this time has got this sort of dark blue sort of landscape, or off in the distance, a sort of horizon sort of off in the distance with some sort of stormy looking red and purple clouds in the sky. On the other side, it's got like a green pasturey sort of look, but we're actually going to be using this side here. So to make this one the right size for our card, you're going to just cut 7/8 of an inch off the bottom. That's all you have to do. We cut from the top and bottom in the last card, but this one is just 7/8 of an inch and just off the bottom. So there we are. As I say, you'll probably be able to use that for something else. This remaining piece, if you rotate it and then cut it at 3 3/4. So you're cutting it, you make 2 pieces, one 3 3/4 and the other 2 1/4. So that's the 2 pieces of cardstock designer series paper you need for our card. So I'll pop my trimmer away. So once we've got those cut, the rest of this one comes together quite easily. So be careful with your kit this time. There are rhinestones in there that can fall out. So you'll have your card base here with a panel to pop inside. You've got a larger panel of Blackberry Bliss. You've got your wonderful panel of vellum, and you've got a narrower panel of Blackberry Bliss. And you've also got your little oval and serrated oval for our sentiment, and as promised, the 3 little rhinestones as well. Okay, so this, as I say, this one's going to come together pretty quick. We'll just put everything aside. What I'm going to do is I'll pop the center white panel in first. Just pop that in. As I say, you can stamp this with a sentiment. You can just leave it blank for your personal message, whatever you like to do inside. Bring another complementary sort of sentiment into there, and we'll just close it, and that's done. So on the outside, we're going to, first of all, we're going to bring in the larger panel of Blackberry Bliss and the larger panel of designer series paper, and if I've done my job right, they should match up pretty much well with just a tiny border around the edge. So we pop those together first, and then pop those onto the front of our card. You're going to have a slightly larger border around the edge of the Blackberry Bliss sort of 1/4 of an inch rather than an 1/8 of an inch difference in those. So pop those in, line them up. I love the blue and the Blackberry Bliss together. They just really set each other off beautifully. Okay, so that's the start. So that's pretty on its own, really. It's just a lovely little C. You could put a sentiment on there. A perfect sort of simple card for a masculine card even. Okay, but we're going to keep going. We've got that panel of vellum that we talked about, and it's just going to sit just in the middle of our cards of our designer series paper there. So normally when you do vellum, you have to be a bit careful because the glue shows through. In this case, we don't mind too much because it's going to be covered by, well, most of the inside is going to be covered by our remaining piece of cardstock and designer series paper. So I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and pop glue on the back of this one. Don't go all the way to the edge, whichever method you decide, because the edges are going to show, but you can pop quite a bit of glue just in that central half to glue it to our paper, because as I say, we don't have to worry too much about seeing the glue through the vellum. So I'm just going to line that up. I've got it too far to one side, which is typical. Just line that up. It's very hard when you're card making and trying to record and trying to keep my head out of shot so that the shadows don't show. And I can't quite judge the distances from the weird angle that I'm at. So I've overcompensated and gone too far the other way now. Hang on. In the meantime, I'm getting very sticky fingers. Let's do it from the bottom and see whether that's more successful. Yes, that's more successful. And it's relatively straight. Not overly straight, but relatively. Cool. So that's our vellum on there. So you can see it sort of fades out that designer series paper quite a lot, which is the look that I was going for because I wanted this middle section to really pop. Okay, so we've got our other panel of Blackberry Bliss and our other more narrow panel, or the other part of our designer series paper. I'm just going to put those together, and as I say, if I've done my job right, they should be perfect for each other, just with a small border around the edge, which they are. And that's going to sit just in the center of our little vellum panel there. Now I have put the original one on dimensional, so we'll keep up that and put that middle panel on dimensionals just to give it even more pop. Using the edges, not to waste anything. Probably gone a bit excessive on those dimensionals, but anyway. Sometimes I prefer the edges. You can actually get them into sort of the shapes that you want. So making sure that the mountain range on your front piece is at the same end as the back piece. You wouldn't want to put it that way because then you've got your mountains in the sky, but make sure that lines up. Then we're going to line that up with the Blackberry Bliss should be exactly the same length, so it lines up with itself as close to central as we can get. And there we are. So that's this one. So we've got a bit of height there with that one. And it looks like, to be honest, it doesn't look like those mountains are too far from lining up anyway. Okay, so two more things to do. We're going to stamp our sentiment. Again, as I mentioned, I don't have the Horizon stamp set, so I'm going to use my favourite sentiments, as you can at home as well. I'm going to use the Best Wishes from Art Gallery. As I say, I love this one. It seems to have a sentiment for just about every size, shape and occasion. So I'm just again going to use black ink. You could use Night of Navy or Blackberry Bliss if you like. I'm just going to use the black because that's what I've got handy. Then I'm going to glue this to the to the serrated oval and just add it to the front of our card. Get that in the right place. This punch is so handy. So handy. You don't have to get the die cutting machine out or find the right dies. It's just punch, punch. And if you cut, one hint that I do have, if I can find my punch here, if you cut the strips of the various colours, so you cut a strip, say you're going to have this one white and this one Blackberry Bliss, as we have, if you cut strips of the paper, the width of those, and just feed them through this way, you won't have any wastage whatsoever. Whereas I suppose if you had put a whole piece in there, you tend to get both stamps, both shapes cut from the same designer series of the same colour, which you might not necessarily want. Okay, I'm going to bring in the best wishes just so it clears that sort of horizon a bit and it's sort of hanging in space, so to speak. We don't cover any of our beautiful blue mountains. Just going to need glue on the left hand edge because the right hand edge is sort of going to be suspended over the edge of that middle panel, obviously because we've got it on dimensionals, it's a little bit higher than the background. You can then, if you want, just to make it a little bit stronger and not flexible, just grab a dimensional and pop that. I would probably use my take your pick tool for that. Just at the very edge so it doesn't get too stuck, and just bring that in there just to give that a little bit of strength there. And there's our best wishes. Okay, last thing is our little rhinestones. These are just the basic rhinestone gems. I'm going to stick with putting it along the edge there at the bottom, just in a row of 3. I just think that's a nice way of blinging it up a bit, but not making them too covering things, taking away from the rest of the card. You may have to have a little bit of a play so that they all go the same distance from each other and in a straight line. That can be a little bit tricky, but have a little bit of a play. Or if you prefer, sort of grab a ruler and put them in line with a ruler, depending on how comfortable you are with your eye. There we are. That's not too bad. There you are. So that's card number 2. We've got a white panel inside, which you can pop another sentiment or your personal message. And then we've got our lovely panel, which the central panel popping because of the vellum behind it. Okay, so that's card number 2. Not going too badly today. These are pretty quick ones, these ones. I think the cutting is probably what's going to take a little bit longer. But there we are. So that's our card number 2. I will have a clean up and be right back with you.